Hey, happy Thanksgiving. I'm Dr. Ruth Roberts. I hope you're having a great Thanksgiving with you and yours. And I've got several fun things to talk about today. The first of which is the question I posted earlier in the Holistic Pet Health group. And that is if I could wave a magic wand for you, um, what would you like me to explain to you so that's super easy to understand? So let's see if we can figure that out. And apologies, I'm got a new piece of software and I can't quite find the right buttons. I think it's just because this thing is too low. There we go. All right, cool. So let's look at share screen. Okay. So, one of the most common questions out of this post was about food. So, 136 comments. Amazing. Thank you guys. Uh, need dog food and animal products like the vets claim. She's got diabetes, ear infections, yeast, cataracts, allergies, how to stop the madness. Paula, I hear you on that one. That is crazy. Um, Root cause of eosinophilic granuloma in cats and how resilient are dogs actually. Um, so it's just, there's so much confusion, right? So best treatment for fleas and worms, why cats won't eat healthy food, um, Cushing's disease, how to stop these yeast infections, how to make a senior cat not need thyroid meds, and what makes his kidneys go bad. Why do they eat poop? All right, so let's start busting this down a little bit. I'm going to start at the bottom, which we still didn't get there. Golly. So, Katie Rulifson, good to hear from you too. She was a client of mine back in South Carolina. Holistic cancer treatment and prevention, and why I feed CrockPet diet versus raw. So, Katie, there is a ton of stuff out there about raw versus cooked versus kibble versus whatever. And it's kind of like, what's really the truth? And to me, what works best in my hands has been cooked food. And so I'm a student of Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese veterinary medicine. And that teaches that the spleen is the center of digestion. And if the spleen's not working, the gut's not working, and nobody's happy. So if we break it down by presenting the gut with cooked food that's easy to digest, then we're making it easier for the pet to start incorporating the food into its system to absorb the nutrients that it needs, and then also to start healing the gut. So often we put foods in there that the gut has created sensitivities to because it has leaky gut. We start to get this inflammation and reaction to um, many of the foods that that dog is commonly eating, and it just prevents the dog from being able to really heal. Same thing with cats, and we'll get to cats in a little bit. So for all of my cancer patients, I often would recommend switching from kibble certainly to cooked food, and then also from raw food into cooked food. We saw a lot of dogs that had been raw fed that we ended up healing the gut with cooked food. Now, I will say this, there are some dogs that do better with raw food. And so, again, these are all general recommendations, but what you have to really do is look at how your dog, how your cat is responding to the food that it's eating. All right. So, grain free or with grain dog food. And Sherry, I would say to you that it depends on what your dog can handle. So, when we do the pet food sensitivity tests that we use from Glacier Peaks, we will see many of them, if not most of them, have sensitivities to grains. And what they've told us is that probably has to do with the glyphosates that are used in many agricultural products. So I think you have to look and see, is this doing, like if we add quinoa to the dog's diet, is the dog doing well with it, or is it creating more symptoms? And feel our way through. I think what doesn't work so well is when we're using a grain-free food and we're using, especially a commercial one, something like 70% of the calories is from legumes, from beans, and that really is tough for the body to digest. Sue Windling is asking, what's my dog allergic to? Sue, that is the $1 million question. And I'm going to tell you to reach out to one of these wonderful holistic pet health coaches that have been trained to help you work through that. It is really tough. I will also tell you that almost all food sensitivities end up resulting in allergy symptoms, whether that's chronic ear infections, skin infections, anal glands, shaking their heads, all of that stuff. So that's where you really have to start first, is healing the gut. All right. Let's see. There you go. So Linda just said it. Since she started adding a scoop of raw and some canned pumpkin, and frankly, Linda, I think it's more the pumpkin adding fiber to feed the microbiome, the anal gland issue stopped. Yep. And that's wonderful to hear. So we are what we, April, right on, April. That's exactly it. How to get rid of a goiter naturally. Beverly, if your dog has a goiter, that usually means that there is some really profound issue going on with the thyroid, and that is very uncommon. So I would definitely check with your vet on that, because there is something more common in terms of thyroid cancer, sadly. So do get that checked out. But adding an iodine and then making sure, if the dog is hypothyroid, that that is treated appropriately. Let's see, raised spot in hind leg. Angie, again, get that thing checked out. If he's got a raised, get it, make sure it's not something yucky. I love Remedy Salve, which you can find on the website. It's made by Hemp Dog Health. Fantastic product for breaking down little skin masses. So check that out. Lucy, constantly hungry kitty. Thyroid's good. Low protein, tasty foods. That's a lot of what's going on, this low protein diet. And so this is the thing. So over the last few years, and I'm guessing that your kitty's been on a low protein food for a long time, and that's part of why she's losing weight. So I would look at, if she likes canned food, this is where something like CrockPet would be an easy thing to switch to, because it's going to be a little bit higher in protein. She's going to feel it taste better, eat better, and she'll be more satisfied because there's enough fat in the diet to keep her satisfied. And the other thing you can do is that it will do as well is add more moisture in the diet so that the kidneys will be happier. Pam, go get the original CrockPet Diet, but stick around. I've got a really cool gift for y'all for sticking around today. Yep. And Jackie, if your pup is getting GI issues from the supplements, again, work with one of the coaches. I mean, these women are just doing amazing things as far as helping people figure out what the root cause is. Right on, Allie. So same thing. So I would start with a Glacier Peaks holistic test, and that's going to help you figure out what's going on with your pet. Double Doodle to stop eating the carpet. So, Z, I would worry about this dog being a little anxious, maybe. And so that may be something where you could um, look at doing things like the Pets Pimp mat is amazing for stress control, and that will help. And then get her out and exercise her. So this is a really high energy dog, and if you're not getting her out for quite a bit of walking every day, I think that will help tremendously bring down the itchies. Or sorry, not the itchies, but eating everything that's not nailed down. Rhonda, that's an interesting one. From parasites, you mean, I'm not sure if you mean parasites in the brain, but again, PIMF mats can be extremely helpful here. When we're looking at neurologic pain, things of that nature, that can huge difference. So let's see, Hannah, if you're hanging out with us, if you could drop that link in, that would be fantastic. Um, the Pets Pimp mat, I love this thing because it's useful for working with pain, with anxiety, stress, and then also to help accelerate healing. And it literally is a nice sized mat. It's big enough for a large dog to enjoy. For small dogs, Hio likes to kind of sprawl out in the middle of it. And this has been a real game changer for her as far as reducing reducing her pain and discomfort. She had some crushed feet, sadly, before we got her, so she's got a bunch of problems. Um, Motion sickness. Jackie, some of that can be supported with chiropractic adjustments, using things like ginger or bitters before the car ride, and then also getting the dog accustomed to going in the car more frequently. So that would look like, you get in the car, you close the door, you get in the front seat, and that's it. You get out, you get the dog out, and sort of build up the exposure. Allergies, we're touching on that already. Nutrition, Valerie, we're touching on that too. And then Karen, that is how to get a liver tumor out safely is tough. So if you're talking about surgery, that's out of this realm. But I think that in terms of controlling it, this is again where you need a very individualized plan based on what type of tumor it is, or most likely is, and also where this thing is. And so there are several protocols that we have available to you in the group over at the Holistic Pet Health Group. So go check that out. And Dolores got the link in here for you for the consultations for personalized nutrition and wellness guidance. And this is where you can contact one of our coaches. So it kind of talks about our process, and then here's the folks that have finished the program. They're running through, you can run through the page and select somebody that has some specific tools that you would like to work with. But as you can see, we've got 40 different coaches that we have available for you to work with, and that number is growing every day. So if you don't know about the coaching program, it is really tough. It has been approved for 40 continuing education hours for veterinarians and vet techs. So you can tell that this is not a super easy cheesy program. It is something very difficult. We work with the coaches one-on-one. They have a mentor they work with, and then we have weekly coaching calls as well to discuss questions about the material, work on cases together, and really get things going. Paw chewing is, Hannah, is often related to allergies. So again, we're going to start working on the gut first of all, and then there is some supplements we use, like a quercetin supplement called Histopause, that's been super helpful for allergies. it has gotten many dogs off of Apoquel. So that's been really fantastic. And epilepsy is another one that is super, super common, sadly. And so, again, the short story is work with a coach to develop a plan. But the longer story is that think back to what happened right before that first seizure and see if there's something that you can relate it to. Was it a vaccination? Was it an oral flea and tick product was given? Was it a super hot day? Was it a lot of exercise? Or was it just totally out of the blue for no reason whatsoever? And if you can find that reason, then this helps us know kind of how to support your pet going forward. This is where something like a keto diet could be appropriate. Also, you could use MCT oil to help induce a state of ketosis without going all the way into full keto. But step number one is always going to be feed real food. So whether you are a raw aficionado, whether you're into feeding the CrockPet diet or other home cooked diet, that's going to be step one, period. And then also making sure that this dog is not hypothyroid. Casey, man. So I think that a lot of dogs basically have PTSD because they've come out of situations that we have no idea about. And imagine if you were in a situation where there's a terrific amount of stress and you just didn't know how to deal with it. So what I would consider again is the PEMF mat, the Pet's PEMF mat. Again, it has a stress reduction setting of a hoarding situation. There were over 140 dogs in the house. She was so anxious. She had no idea how to deal with being out in the free world, right? So she had to learn all of that. She also was very noise phobic. And when we went to Mexico, they love fireworks there. She was about to crawl out of her skin. And we started with a PEMF device. And within 2 weeks, this dog was like, oh, more fireworks. Okay. So I cannot recommend these strongly enough. Again, you need to work on the gut. And again, you need to control inflammation with high doses of omega-3 fatty acids. So those are all root causes. And again, Casey, I would strongly recommend that you work with a coach to really drive down into that. Kim, I would definitely go again with cooked food or at least whole foods. And so if you, we were cooking for 10 dogs, 10 pets, 5 dogs, 5 cats. And my wife and I could knock out a month's worth of food in about 4 hours. So as long as you have freezer space, that's an easy thing there. And then, Barb, we were talking about seizures. One of the things I left out was high doses of hemp oil. And Hannah, if you can drop that for that link for the Heal hemp oil, that would be awesome. But this has been a real game changer for so many dogs in terms of controlling seizures. So check that out, work on the diet, reduce the inflammation in the brain. You can use omega-3s for that. Triple their lifespan. Mary Ellen, I'd love to have the answer to that question. It's interesting. I was doing some research the other day on the longest lived dogs. So you all know about Bobby and probably Bosco and maybe some of the other ones. So I think Spike and lives in South Carolina. I think he's the oldest living dog currently. And guess what he's been eating? Hot dogs and hamburgers. So typical standard American food. So some of these guys are just genetic freaks and they're eating garbage food and yet thriving in place of it. I think two of the things that are left out, we don't really think about, is that almost all of the dogs that are really long-lived have not been neutered or spayed, or were neutered or spayed later in life, like at the age of 10. The other thing is that they're outside a lot and they're exercising a lot. And indeed, in humans, this is really key. Most centenarians, people who live to 100 or more, are walking and moving constantly. So movement is really important. And Millie, I hope you're getting some answers. And preventive measures. So Sharon, real food. Here's the top 5. Ready? Real food, filtered water that takes out microplastics, cysts, all of the gnarly chemicals that are in there, uh, movement, meditation, and that's you doing the meditation and turning off your cell phone so it's not dinging and binging, and controlling inflammation. So high doses of omega-3 fatty acids, C60, something like that to help reduce those inflammatory molecules and making sure we're getting the gut working well. Talked about allergies. Debbie, I'd love if I could tell you that I would be in the Nobel Prize run-up, but this is where you may want to explore stem cells because they can do amazing things as far as repairing injuries. Nancy, there are a lot of people that do communication with animals. And in fact, that's one of the projects I'd like to work on, is developing a network of animal communicators, because I think they can help us understand a little bit more so that when we see them doing certain movements, expressing thoughts, we can start to work with that and get them what they need. Dawn Marie, if your dog is getting really sick each time she gets it, then I'm not sure what state you're in. There are some states that do have medical exemptions for the rabies vaccine. One of the first things I would do is talk with your veterinarian about getting a titer or a blood test to see if A, your dog actually created an antibody response to the vaccine or not. There are some dogs that are what we call non-responders, and in that case, there's no point to continue to vaccinate because the dog is not going to produce an antibody response. But step one is to talk with your vet about getting that titer done. I think that Dr. Rob was offering a way to get titers done, and I think he finally got called on that. But there's a link on his site about how your veterinarian can work with Kansas State and get a rabies titer done much more inexpensively than through IDEXX or Intech Labs. Miriam, why do you think you're doing something wrong? Right? Let's see if there's I mean, I can see you all are so desperate. You're not doing things wrong. It's just that maybe there's some things we need to do differently. So Marion, again, please just reach out if you haven't elsewhere in the group. Let's see if one of the coaches can get you some things to start moving with. But again, I think real food is step one to improve things. The other thing is too, we're facing a massive problem, and what I am starting to call it is spay-neuter syndrome. So, for instance, in the United States, the American Cancer Society, the Veterinary Cancer Society, estimates that 25% of dogs will develop cancer in their lifetime, and that 50% of dogs over the age of 10 will develop cancer. And that's just insane, absolutely insane. To give you some frame of reference, in the Italian Cancer Registry, the incidence is about 10%. And so these are dogs in the EU and other countries, there's not as much spaying and neutering. So the incidence I would expect to be much lower. But for frame of reference, the human incidence is something like 0.145% in the United States. So diet's a problem, all the chemicals, but really spaying and neutering is a big problem. And if your dog is already spayed or neutered, we can't put the ovaries and testicles back in. But what we can do is optimize gut function so that the microbiome is working as well as it can, because that is super important to help aid in detoxification. We can improve liver's ability to detoxify and to clear excess levels of luteinizing hormone, which is what I think is causing spay-neuter syndrome. And do everything you can to control inflammation, get as much moisture through the body as is humanly possible. So the interesting thing about dogs and cats that have been spayed and neutered is that their levels of luteinizing hormone are 20 to 30 times normal. What luteinizing hormone is supposed to do is help the ovaries develop the eggs to the point where they're easy to fertilize and very robust, and then also in male dogs, help them develop healthy sperm. Now, what also happens with these elevated levels of luteinizing hormones is that receptors for this hormone develops on tissues where it should not. And that's the brain, the adrenal glands, the bones, the joints, the bone marrow, the gut, the kidneys. Are you getting the picture here? So all of these diseases you're talking about, there are receptors on all of these tissues for luteinizing hormone. And in fact, one of the veterinarians that started this research was trying to get funding to do a study to treat lymphoma by blocking the production of luteinizing hormone. That tells you how big of an impact this is having. So Maggie's got your back here. She's one of our coaches. I love Maggie. She's got a wicked sense of humor and just a really good down-to-earth approach to it. Jennifer, what triggers my cat's IBD flare-ups? Most commonly, it is due to stress and allergies. And, so if all of a sudden you're entering a particular pollen season, that could cause a flare-up. If she's stressed, if she's got something else going on further stressing the body, or if you're stressed, that can really create some issues. Let's see, spinal stroke. Robin, that fibrocartilaginous emboli is kind of a mysterious thing. It makes no sense why this happens. But the idea is that a small piece of cartilage breaks off from either the rings around the spinal cord or some of the ligaments and gets into the bloodstream, shuts off blood supply to a segment of the spine, and then there's disastrous results. And I don't think we know. So anything that is considered to be idiopathic or self-caused is, in my mind, related to some sort of autoimmune type disease. So what you'll want to do, thankfully, these don't tend to recur, but what you do want to do is really focus on gut health. So making sure there's no food sensitivities, adding in probiotics as appropriate, and really, really dialing in the diet. Lynn, yeast. So Lynn, what if I told you that Lily, and what an adorable pup, yeast is an overgrowth issue, and it's secondary to the allergies, and that's sort of what happens. So I think there's a couple of things you can do. You can go to a lower carbohydrate diet and or use what are considered to be slow burn carbs like beans that have a ton of fiber, so that the impact of the sugar or starch is minimized. You can use, again, quercetin and nettles, the histopolis product. I think that's been amazing for these guys. Dial in, making the gut get better. Joanna, we already talked a little bit about epilepsy. Patty Ann, I'm sorry to hear it's not just one health issue, but multiples. And again, chat in the main part of the group. Let's see if we can get you some help. Lulu Star, this is an entire textbook. So again, you will never go wrong working on the gut, improving detoxification, reducing inflammation, increasing exercise, increasing mindfulness. Amanda, that is a huge question. If it's all proteins, we have designed diets that are lentil based. And again, this is going to be something to do with food sensitivity. So it's really important to hone in on what your dog is or is not sensitive to. So I think that will help you tremendously. And Patricia Ann, again, I think we've been talking around all of this. So all of the things I mentioned, this is a situation where I'm guessing that your baby was spayed or neutered spayed early in life, and maybe this stuff started pretty soon after she was. Sean, you can add more fiber, and I hate to say it, but if you go on YouTube, there are boatloads of videos on how to express the anal glands. But increasing fiber generally does a good trick. Charlene, that's what the original CrockPet diet is all about, is nutritionally balanced. So the CrockPet diet is complete and balanced for all life stages. You do need to use some supplements to get it there, but it is something that you can manipulate based on what your dog does or doesn't need. Jackie, why do they eat poop? There's a couple of reasons. One is either the microbiome is off and they're eating other dogs' poop to sort of do a transplant, if you will. Sometimes because if they're eating their own poop, they're not digesting the food very well. So that's another possibility too. Maureen, there are many kitties that if we can improve their liver function, they will actually start to have better control over their thyroids because the excess thyroid hormone is better cleared from the system. So I'd give that a shot. One of the easier ways to go is standard processes, feline hepatic support, because it is organ-based, and so often the kitties will just eat it nicely. Karen, I have never heard of Cushing's disease being diagnosed in a 2-year-old dog. And that's a little crazy to me. I think a lot of veterinarians will see. I know, Hayo, come here. Okay. Okay. She had to come help because she likes to help us do these. Yeah. For those of you that don't know her, this is Hayo, the love of our lives. But a lot of vets will see an elevated alkaline phosphatase and kind of stop there and call it Cushing's. But regardless, this means there is significant issues with liver function. And also, if this is atypical Cushing's disease, it's a hormone imbalance. And so that's where you'd have to really start working. But that's pretty crazy. Let's see. Prevention of hip dysplasia. The best thing I can tell you, Maggie's right. The difficulty is that the OFA x-rays, the Orthopedic Foundation for Animals, we've been doing those for over 60 years now, and it has changed the incidence of hip dysplasia by exactly 0%. So what is important is exactly as Maggie is suggesting, or, understanding that something is going on, being willing to x-ray your dog as early as 6 or 8 months of age if it's limping, and getting that checked out, and then really feeding good quality food, supporting the body by helping it develop muscles so that the joints don't have to do so much work. Those are all really critical. And Maggie's doing great stuff. And Delora is absolutely correct. We have turned cats into carb addicts, and it is really tough to get them off of it. Sherry, the best treatment for fleas and worms is prevention. So what I would tell you is to do environmental control. So with nematodes, borax and silicate crystal, things like that, and all of that, all of that stuff. I think again, there's a lot of information on our website and the blogs about natural flea control. If you control the fleas, you will control the tapeworms, and I'm not sure if that's the worms that you mean or not. And y'all, thanks for jumping on. So Sandy, so this is one of my nemesis. We've been talking a lot about this a lot this week, but the coaches and actually Jessica and Delora and I were talking about that as well. The deal with pancreatitis is I think it's really, really, really overdiagnosed. It's like any dog that's vomiting that has a positive test, they call it pancreatitis, even though the test is not that accurate. And homeopathic remedies may be able to help. And the other thing, again, is get the gut functioning normally. We know that dogs that truly have had pancreatitis need to be on a lower fat diet, but it doesn't necessarily mean to be a low fat diet that the prescription diet is for the rest of his life. So again, this is where it's so important to work with somebody that can support you nutritionally. And Jessica, thank you, and happy Thanksgiving to you. Rena, you are welcome. So happy to spending part of your day with me as well. So Jessica is one of our mentors and a certified holistic pet health coach. And Rena, I love that picture of you in the kitchen. Rena is almost through the certification program. I have one more video to watch of yours, and then but what you're doing has been amazing so far. And Paris, good to see you too. Delora, love you. Love you guys. I mean, this really has been the thrill of my lifetime and my honor to be able to educate people to help others help their pets. Let's see. Let's go back here. There's a bunch of them. Let's see. And we've got all our little lovely group expert badges. Why is epilepsy so much harder to control in dogs versus human? Franca, this is a great question. And I think some of it is because their veterinary medicine hasn't really incorporated all of the lifestyle things that we can do in terms of diet, exercise, stress control, things like that. And the other thing is that many veterinarians will use kind of the old time medicines that have been around forever and ever, like phenobarbital, potassium bromide. And so Keppra levetiracetam is a better option if you have to use medication. And again, this is where there are Chinese herbal formulas that are so helpful. And then getting at that root cause of when and why did this epilepsy start. Alex, I think you're absolutely right. So we're all hung up about these AAFCO standards, and some of them are good and some of them aren't. So for instance, when I first balanced the original CrockPet diet in 2006, the calcium level is exactly half of what it is now. And then in 2018-19, they changed them and almost doubled them. Now, does that mean that we were killing dogs for the last however many years since those numbers were issued? I don't think so. So I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of this is guesswork. A lot of these numbers are based on what people have looked at in the labs in terms of feeding trials that worked. Uh, but I don't know that they're absolute answers. And I think the other thing is, too, is that there is so much uh, cognitive dissonance around pet food that we say, oh, this is the only way. And even though we may see that our pets aren't really thriving with whatever this is, we're unwilling to change and look at other options. Um, so I'm sorry you're getting blasted out of the water for getting it wrong. But yeah, I mean, there's always margin for error. And if you think about the way that we eat, we're not eating a completely balanced diet every day. But if you make it right over the course of the week, I think that it's super, super um, easy to keep everything kind of in status quo. So don't feel bad. Try to shake it off because people are so wrapped up in persecuting others when they step off of what they believe is the right way. So, y'all, give thanks that we're out here. We have this amazing ability to communicate with each other on this platform, on other platforms, on our Circle platform, which is completely private. So if you haven't checked that out, go check it out. We're going to start doing more broadcasts there and more education there for you as well. But be kind, y'all. There is not enough kindness in the world right now. And if somebody's made a mistake, help them learn. Don't scream at them. Nobody learns that way. Angela Chapman, golly, it is right on. So Maggie's got you cooking. So this is basically an allergic disease, eosinophilic granuloma, and it is really marked when, I mean, some of these kitties, their poor lips, all of them are messed up. You can also see these lesions elsewhere in the body. But that's right. So we can control some of this with quercetin and then really getting at the root cause of the gut. If you're an FDN practitioner, you know root cause. So there you go. And let's see, what else do we got? Allergies. We've talked about that. We've talked about yeast. We've talked about ear infections. And lordy, do dogs need dog food and animal products like the vet claimed? All right, now I'm going to light a fire up, I hope, but I want y'all to hear me out on this. Dogs are omnivores. Cats are obligate carnivores, but they've been able to adapt to what we've been feeding them for the last little bit of time. We've created almost all of the problems cats are experiencing by feeding them the bag of kibble. And because it's extremely high in carbohydrate and really just an anathema to what they truly need. So that's a species where we really do have to feed them animal products. We can make them vegans. It's a little tough on them though. With dogs, they are omnivores and they evolved with us humans, Homo sapiens. We were cooking 50,000 years ago. They showed up about 30,000 years ago, a developing distinct subset of wolves. And they've been eating first our garbage and then our leftovers. And actually, they were eating our poop too, which is why we can use human probiotic products for dogs because our microbiomes are very, very similar. And then our leftovers, and then finally what we fed them. We did not feed them raw meat. There has never been this much animal protein available in the United States ever. And if we look at where this raw movement came from, it comes out of a desire to do what's best for the dog and to move away from processed food. Juliette Barclay-Levy was one of the first to champion it and write about it. But y'all, she fed grain. So she fed oats, she fed rye, she fed wheat. And she also said talcum powder, how could it possibly be cancer causing? So, we all come with our best ideas, with all of us have the goal to help pets. But the interesting thing is I read a study about a year or so ago looking at an ancestral microbiome, meaning a poop sample of a dog from roughly Neanderthal times, was found and sequenced, and then they compared that to pet dogs in South Africa that were largely eating processed kibble food, so pretty much like most of the dogs here in the U.S., and dogs in India, some of whom were pets eating a stable diet, and many of whom were street dogs eating whatever they could. And India does have quite a number of people that eat meat, but the majority of the population there eat very few animal products because it's just not part of their diet or their faith. And then the third group were Laotian street dogs. So if you think about Laos, what might the Laotian people be eating there? They're largely eating vegetables, rice, a little fish, little small amounts of animal protein. But these Laotian street dogs are eating whatever they can scrounge up. Now, who do you think had the most similar microbiome to the ancestral microbiome? Was it the dogs eating kibble? Was it the dogs eating a mix of everything? Or was it the Laotian dogs that are eating a lot of veggies and rice? And if you said the Laotian dogs, you're absolutely right. So what I'm trying to say is we can feed these dogs as vegans and vegetarians. But again, this is putting every dog into one box, and that doesn't work. You have to look at how your dog does and then decide from there. The other thing I'm going to tell you that I'm very passionate about with home cooked food is that it gives you the ability to really manipulate the ingredients to best benefit your dog. And y'all, if animal protein is one of the leading causes of greenhouse gas emission in the United States, and dogs and cats in the United States are already eating 25 to 30% of the conventionally produced animal proteins, eventually this stuff is going to catch up with us. And it already is, to be honest, right? The wildfires, the crazy storms, all of that. We have got to start feeding our pets a more earth-friendly diet, and ourselves as well. I mean, that's what I've been working on myself. All right. If you've got questions while I'm still here, pop them in. I do have something super cool for you. Now, Hannah is going to pop a link into the chat here, which is a link to the ebook about the original CrockPet Diet. And in the book, I talk about what it is, why I created it, and then sort of the concepts behind how to use it. And it also includes kind of a basic recipe in there. And then go there, it's $10, but because you spent your Thanksgiving with me, once you drop in, and actually Hannah's got it in there, if you drop in this ebook code right on into that link, you'll get the book completely free. It's a digital book. It's going to download immediately. When you're really bored after your Thanksgiving dinner, you can start think about how to cook for your dog, how to cook for your cat. Somebody did ask, why are cats so hard to get on food? So if you want your cat to eat better food, be prepared to be patient and take it slowly. So one of my own cats, Romy, lived to be 24. I found her as a kitten out in our drainage ditch. It took me 6 months to convert her from dry food to canned food, and then another 3 months from canned food to cooked food. But she did that. And as I said, she lived to be 24. At 23, she's like, I am not eating any of this anymore. I want the damn Friskies. And so that's what we had to feed her. But she thrived. She did extremely well. I mean, 24 is amazing, right? All of my dogs, so Esau lived to be 16. Uh, Mona lived to be 16 and a half. Spit lived to be 16. Sam, our Brittany Spaniel, died at 12, I think, probably from a brain tumor. So all of our dogs have gotten to be 12 plus. Pepe, our cat, died in June at 14. So I think that speaks volume. Juliette Barclay Levy was happy to get dogs to 12 and 14. So with raw diet, and that's what I've been able to do consistently, and so have my clients. So we've had so many people get Labradors to 14, get Golden Retrievers to 14, get Rottweilers to 12, which is a massive accomplishment by feeding this diet and being consistent about it. All right. That's what I've got for you today. Happy Thanksgiving. Spend time with your family. Spend time with your dog. Spend time with your cat. Make them a priority in your life. Give them your undivided attention for 2 to 3 minutes a day so that they know who you are when you're not amped up, and they know that you've got your undivided attention focused solely on them. Take good care. We'll see you soon.